Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to another Tekken 8 video, with us in the aftermath of 8's story, which I may drop a review on, as it is just that damn good. One of the biggest questions going into this game was the mysterious purple lightning wielder, Reina, being not only a newcomer to the franchise, but also a fellow practitioner of Mishima style karate, one that retains echoes of the past with Heihachi's moveset. So who really is Reina? Well, that is what I will be exploring in today's video to understand who she actually is. Now mind you, going in, it will be part history of episode as well as part theoretical, as the nature of Reina's character hasn't been entirely explored in this game. I think there's enough open-ended knowledge in the Tekken universe that we do get to paint an idea of just where she came from and who she really is as a character. But of course, going ahead, here's just a quick spoiler warning, as I will of course be talking about the contents of the game's story. But before we do begin, if you like these videos and wish to see more, please don't forget to subscribe, as well as tick that bell to stay up to date with everything we do here. Anywho, let's just jump right into things. Now, coming into Tekken 8, we do come to learn that Reina is indeed one of Heihachi's illegitimate children. Keep in mind that whilst this is a bit out the blue, Harada, Tekken's director, has actually tweeted and confirmed that the Mishima is father to at least 18 to 25 children, with Lars being one of the more prominent ones to surface. Reina is no exception in that respect, yet unlike Lars, seems to be very aware of her heritage at a young age, looking up to him and even adopting their fighting style. With that said, we don't know if Heihachi had an actual relationship with her, but seeing as Reina idolizes him, as well as Harada having alluded to this idea long predating Tekken 8, it is indeed very possible. Outside of her father though, we have absolutely no idea who Reina's mother is. But taking into account her ties and heritage to that of the Devil Gene, we do have a multitude of different avenues and paths to explore. Now yes, of course the common denominator is Heihachi Mishima. Being married to Kasumi Hachijo, his line has been somewhat plagued by the Devil Gene since matrimony. But that's also the purpose behind Lars. As you see, after learning of his wife's true nature, as well as Kazuya's, he actually believed himself to be tainted by the Devil Gene. Thus, he would have a child with a Scandinavian woman to learn if this was truly so, leading to the birth of Lars Alexanderson, someone who did lack the Devil Gene. So clearly, Heihachi is out of the picture here. So this now takes us to her mother's side, raising the question of, is Reina the secret child of Kasumi and Heihachi? Well, whilst it would make sense, it's not actually possible. As the time of Reina's appearance, she's notably still in high school, with it being documented that she attends the Mishima Polytechnical School, and seeing as she refers to Jin as senpai, a Japanese custom designed to address elders, that really doesn't seem to be the case, especially as Jin is 22 by the time of Tekken 8. This actually places her birth sometime around the dates of Tekken 2 to 3, meaning that Kasumi was long dead by then, and that she is the youngest Mishima to date. So now, we ponder if Heihachi bedded another member of the Hachijos. And whilst I wouldn't entirely rule that idea out, a key part of Heihachi's character is kind of rooted in his resentment against the Devil Gene, as it would taint his wife, son, and even his grandson, all people he's either killed or attempted to kill. But with the experimental nature of Lars's birth, as well as the legacy of the Hachijos being very defiant against tyrants, I do believe that something definitely happened here though, as it does tie into the tapestry we see during the opening credits of Tekken 8. Here we see recounts and tales of the Devil Gene's progenitor, Azazel, exuberating his power as he bestows two different individuals with the Devil Gene. Whilst this mural could prophesize Jin and Kazuya, notably by the end of the game's story, with how it's laid out, neither of the two clash with Azazel at the same time. Thus, I have a seeking suspicion that Reina's mother's ancestry could very well derive from the other ancestral line here, as by the end of the story, the Mishima line is finally purged of the Devil Gene. Thus, on paper, it would kind of make sense for another family to continue the long-lasting legacy of the Devil Gene, as we've never met other wielders of such power. In fact, the only one that kind of rivals it is actually Akuma himself, who is notably absent during the events of 8. Another working theory is that Reina herself is actually a genetic clone of Heihachi, spliced with a little bit of that Devil Gene. Now I know this is a pretty out there idea, but it's actually something softly explored as far back as Tekken 3, as Heihachi looked to harvest the DNA of Ogre to create extremely powerful super soldiers, an endeavor that he would ultimately fail in. This idea would actually be later revisited, but this time by G Corporation in Tekken 4, where after successfully recovering the body of Kazuya Mishima, they would attempt to genetically harvest his Devil Gene. Now these plans possibly could have fostered some success, until it was raided by the Zaibotsu. So from 4 onwards, this idea is kind of swept under the rug. But taking into account Reina's age and window, it's hard to not draw the parallels with the ideas present. Plus, seeing as she idolizes Heihachi, this very well could have been an idea he later revisited, as it's possible that Reina's genetic material is very loosely based off his and the Devil Gene, tying into yet another idea from Tekken 3, where he wished to graft Ogre's DNA onto his own. So, in terms of origins, there are a lot of different ideas and variables that I could see making sense for the Tekken series, especially with what we've covered of the Mishimas here. So now, let's actually talk a bit about Reina herself, because she is quite the elusive, mysterious figure in 8's story, as behind that sweet charm is something far more sinister. Now Reina is very much like her father in a multitude of ways. She is cunning, sharp-minded, and very well versed in Mishima-style karate. Of course, also having her own ambitions of world domination. However, unlike her father, Reina is genetically spliced with that of the Devil Gene, actually being very much so aware of its properties, wishing to awaken it in the quickest way possible. As you see, in every instance of its awakening, it seems to only be triggered by a near-death experience. For Kazuya, it was being thrown off a cliff, and for Jin, it was a bullet between the eyes. Coming of age, she wished to push herself to her limits, yet wasn't quite able to get the results she wished. This is ultimately where the rest of her bloodline comes into play, as with Heihachi's disappearance, a seat of power is open at the Zaibotsu, one that is left open from Kazuya's siege. She would seek out Jin Kazama to learn more about herself and break that glass ceiling. So once she does first encounter Jin, she would put on this very naive and very sweet demeanor, as it would catch him off guard. And seeing as how he was struggling to tap into the Devil Gene, she would push him to his limits to see what exactly was required of her. By learning of this, she would concede to him, getting a rough idea of what needed to be done. Yet, unsatisfied, she would join his side in his war against Kazuya, aligning herself with Lars Yggdrasil forces, as well as that of Violet Systems. She entered the King of Iron Fist, preparing to war against her sibling. And during this conflict, she is able to get a few good licks in, headbutting Kazuya in his new form, and going toe-to-toe with him for an extensive amount of time. notably catching him off guard with her very mysterious Mishima style. It's very back and forth, but understandably the power of a pure devil is simply too much for her, as she is struck down by him. But once again, it is not enough to trigger the change. But the damage she and Claudio inflicted on him does enough to force him to retreat. This now takes us onto the final battle against G Corporation, where their forces are dwindling, especially after Reina is able to defeat Nina, even offering her a place at her side. Because of this very desperate situation, Kazuya is forced to interfere and cut down Lars's forces from a massive laser. Realizing that this was her time and opportunity, she would stand directly in front of it, being left in a very critical state. But this was exactly what she was looking for. As here, Reina is finally able to awaken her devil gene, swearing to make Heihachi proud and take from Mishima's Zaibatsu. Now, narratively, Reina is more of a side character in 8's plot, being integrated in a very smart manner, as by having her elude in the background, it makes her a prominent figure to later rise. Her very existence actually adds a lot of legacy to the series, as it taps into a lot of old existing ideas, while simultaneously being able to carry the torch. From a story perspective, I thought that it was very smart to introduce her in this way, as it never really detracted from the game's main story. As even with the Mishima saga over, the next generation still bears the scars of greatness. Thus, I'm intrigued to see what's done with Reina moving forward, especially that now, she is the only character in the series to have the devil gene. I personally really enjoyed Reina's inclusion in this game, and I'm super invested to see what becomes of her in future installments. I like that whilst we've strayed away from the core Mishimas, the legacy of that line still continues to live on in very new and very different ways. So with that said, and a new age upon us, what do you believe will become of her character? And do you think we will encounter any of Heihachi's other children? Please do comments down below, as I'd love to hear what you have to say, as there's just so many different possibilities on the table. And of course, which of these origins do you think she falls into? I'd love to hear what you have to say. But anywho everyone, that has been it for me. So as always, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting. I'll catch you all in the next one.